Hello, hello, my dear friends, and welcome to Divine Debut. This is Kathy speaking. Thank you so much for joining me here on this Astro update that I do every so often and randomly. Okay, it's all about, having the time, and we know that we don't have a lot of time as we're always, hello, Agape, as we're always trying to get things completed. But with all these retrogrades that have been going on, it's like Spirit is pulling us towards the past. We've got matters pertaining to the past that need re-looking at. We've had so many planets that have been retrograde, but we'll go into all of that in a moment. Hello, Agape. It's time to spend with Mummy, is it? Yes, my dear friends, today's the 11th of October of 2022. 11 is the number of the Justice card in the tarot. 11 is always, it's like a portal, okay? And it's the 10th month, so it's the 11th of the 10th of 2022. So many aces and twos. We know aces are all about new beginnings. Twos are about decisions, but they're also about, trying to balance, find peace, or even we could be dealing with separation. I mean, twos are two individuals that stand together, and that's why I see number 11 as a portal. So this is the Greek time. I've got 0 Aries on the chart, so that it's easy for you to follow along, for those of you that are learning astrology and you're still at the first stages of learning. And if you're interested in more astrology, do join us on Patreon, as we do go into a lot of the details there. So going into the retrogrades, we've just had Mercury, who retrograded in Virgo. Agape, can you get down before you make a mess? Thank you. Mercury has been retrograding in the sign of Virgo. But also part of Libra, because Mercury retrograded from the 8th degree of Libra and sort of went back, regressed back into Virgo, which is its home sign. And remember, he stationed retrograde on, let me give you the exact date. He stationed retrograde on September 10th. Pay attention to September 10th. Stationed retrograde, regressed back into Virgo, stationed direct on the 2nd of October, 2nd, 3rd of October, and now has started to move direct. He's been covering the ground that he retrograded over. So he's still on his shadow degrees. So the area of the chart that he retrograded on, Mercury is all about the logic. It's about communication, information. It rules anything technical. Mercury being the ruling planet of Virgo and Gemini, right? So whatever the significations of Gemini and Virgo are, that's what Mercury is all about. So Mercury rules health. We can be talking about health, information on health, information connected to our daily routine, our work, our, what is it that we do daily? How do we provide service to the world? Virgo is about work, and all those little details. Mercury is a lot of communication. He rules Gemini, which is also communication. Gemini rules siblings and short distance travel and anything that gives you a sense of mobility. You can move, right? Short distance travel usually with Gemini, or your environment, your relatives, information, communication, collaboration, commerce, business. Think of how I think of Gemini and Mercury is the office in the home. Anything that we use to communicate or to do business, anything that we utilize right? So we speak, we write, we communicate. And we can also speak to social media and the internet. So Mercury has been retrograding in this area. So yes, Virgo is matters of health and our work, and Libra, because it retrograded in the area of Libra. Libra is relationships. It is the natural seventh house. It is the house of marriage. It's the house of partnerships. Virgo also rules people that we collaborate with, that we work with, right? So the seventh house is all relationships, because if we think that the first house is the house opposite, I should say, Libra being relationships, and two people, the scales that need to be balanced, where we can find peace and there's equilibrium with Libra. Where there's no equilibrium, this is what we're trying to do now, to find that balance, or to find our justice where there's been imbalances, injustices, a lack of fairness is Libra. And opposite is Aries, which is the individual. It's not the pair, which, Libra is two scales. So we're talking about the two, whereas Aries is the ace, I, me, my, the individual. The Mars ruled Aries, which is cardinal fire. Cardinal means I instigate, I initiate movement, right? Beginnings. It's the ace, it's the first house, and Libra is cardinal air. So we're talking about cardinal fire and cardinal air in the Libran axis, because when we look at one sign, we look at the opposite sign as well. So as Mercury was retrograding through Virgo's more practical health, practical steps we take to make sure that our physical body is healthy. But Pisces, which is opposite, is more about our emotional, psychological, spiritual health, our psychological health. Remember that Pisces is connection to spirit. It's the 12th house. It speaks to possible endings, a feeling of escapism, where a situation you may feel bound and blocked and all chained up and just generally not able to move. Think of the hanging man, right? The card of Pisces, where someone needs to surrender to the bigger picture, surrender to the dream. Let's say that you've been dreaming of something. You can speak to literal dreams, but also just, how you dream of your future. But also Pisces can speak to escapism, or using any drugs or medicines to help escape an open wound, an emotional, a challenging moment, a difficult time that you may be going through. And the 12th house also speaks to karma, my dear friends, where we're needing to work through and complete. The 12th house is a completion point. It also rules any hidden enemies. It rules love triangles, so secret love affairs. It rules long distance as well. But speaking of health, it's more about the psychological, the health of our psyche, our emotional body is the house opposite to Virgo. So Mercury's been trying to figure things out here, and Mercury, remember, is all about communication, having those important conversations, having the ability to read between the lines. Virgo is dotting your I's and crossing your T's. It's about perfection. It's about purification. Purification through details, through information, through the ability to read between the lines. And that's what Virgo is very good at, discernment, yeah? What is true and what is not. Because if Pisces is confusion, illusion, yes, it can speak to compassion, empathy, and unconditional love. But Virgo is more grounded. in reality, where we've got the ability to see, have we been wearing those rose-colored glasses ourselves, or have we been disillusioned or in an illusion ourselves, where we're dreaming of something, but we don't have the practical side of things, how to get to that dream. And that's what Mercury is good with. Now, if you think of Mercury retrograding in this area, he is in opposition. He's been in opposition to Jupiter. That's why I said pay attention to September, because Mercury had gotten to the 8th degree. I think it was the 8th degree, somewhere there, and opposed Jupiter, who was also roughly there at the 8th degree, which is the degree that, both Mercury at 8 degrees and Jupiter at 8 degrees of Aries, they both stationed to turn retrograde on those degrees. So they've been, think of it, I mean, they've been passing over, Jupiter and Mercury have been passing over the 0 degrees of cardinal signs, which are very important degrees on the world front. Whenever a planet stations or passes over this 0 degrees of the cardinal signs, so Libra, Aries, Capricorn, and Cancer, that's the world axis. So it's very particular and very important with what's going on in the world. So we see things playing out on a collective scale for many. So if you think of Mercury being lots of, little bits of information, Jupiter would be the wisdom. Mercury is the student and Jupiter is the teacher. So Jupiter would be the bigger picture, the understanding, the wisdom, the ability to expand. Jupiter rules truth and justice. Remember, he naturally rules Sag. So they've been in opposition. They both stationed at those 8 degrees, and then they started their retrogrades. But they opposed each other before. I mean, Jupiter retrograded first. Jupiter, I think, was already retrograde when Mercury stationed at that 8th degree. And remember that Mercury can be the trickster. So Mercury is just like the magician. If the magician is in the upright, you will have the ability to see what's going on above, right? As above, so below. How the planets are affecting us here on in the mundane, in our lives. But if the magician is in the reverse, he would be the trickster, or there's some sort of clarity or a bringing out into the open the information connected to what's been hidden, what have we been disillusioned about, what were we wearing those rose-colored glasses, why were we wearing those rose-colored glasses, or why were we served certain narratives that are not real and that we've been disillusioned and deceived, whether it be mainstream media, particular individuals' personal life, could be anything, but also anything connected with teaching, schooling. Remember, Mercury is the student and Jupiter is the teacher. So it was the 3rd of September, if I'm not wrong, and then, when they first opposed each other at that 8th degree, and then Mercury stationed retrograde as well, and I think it was on the 19th, when they were both Mercury and Jupiter were again in opposition. And an opposition, my dear friends, is like a full moon. Think of a full moon, which is like the sun in opposition to the moon, where the sun reflects its light onto the moon. So anything that's been dark will be lit up. So we get the information usually in the opposition. And the opposition is all about trying to find the peace and the balance. So it's all about details. It's all about the things I've already mentioned. I mean, Jupiter can speak to anything connected to politics and legalities and learning, anything to do with philosophy, Mercury, small bits of information. Jupiter is more that wider, bigger perspective of what is really true. What is the light? Remember Jupiter, Zeus, who gave the light to humanity, who gave the understanding and the tools for civilization to move forward. Now, of course, Jupiter can over-exaggerate the information or the lie, or, what's true and what's not. Jupiter and Mercury have been doing a dance now since they've been retrograde, and Jupiter is still retrograde as he's coming up to that 0 degrees of Aries. So we're going to hear a lot on the world stage pertaining to world matters, information that we've been disillusioned by or deceived by. And that's Agapi making noise, trying to find a toy to play with. So don't mind her. Yeah, where was I? Jupiter is retrograding, and Jupiter will station to turn direct November 23rd. So he's going to regress back into Pisces, which he also rules Pisces. He's the ancient ruling planet of Pisces, as he was the ancient ruler of Pisces until Neptune was founded. So he's returning back home. And remember, because Pisces can be, misunderstandings, it's like trying to communicate under a deep sea where there's a lot of water. And sometimes there's no ability to, the words will come out as, a blur. And therefore, we need to trust our intuition. We've got the ability through our higher self to connect to spirit. Pisces is very spiritual. It is the divine. It is, God, Buddha, whoever you believe in. So he will regress back here and station at that 27th, 28th degree in Pisces. Now, when they first conjoined, because they have, Jupiter and Neptune have connected back in April, where, Jupiter can expand on the illusion of Neptune. If Neptune is mainstream media and anything that's in information that's been blurred, that's been very deceiving, then they do say that when Jupiter and Neptune come together, they can either form magic, because they're both about divinity and spirituality, and Neptune is very creative. So we've got the ability to imagine, to envision, right? To envision the world as a wonderful place, our lives as magical. But Jupiter will also give us the truth. He can over-exaggerate, but he can also bring the clarity and the truth. But when they did conjoin, we were talking about, inflation and anything that's got to do with water. The seas, right? Neptune is the god of the seas. Anything to do with liquid, fluid, anything pertaining to resources that, the earth gives, as Uranus is transiting through Taurus, and Taurus is the earth, and the North Node is in Taurus, North Node in Taurus and South Node in Scorpio, but Uranus is also here. So, what the land gives us, even with Pluto, which does speak to all those things that are beneath the earth. So what does the earth provide? It's our resources, it's our minerals, it's the oil, it's everything that we need to sustain and keep moving forward. So Jupiter can expand on the inflation, on any accidents pertaining to the sea. And we've seen that destruction, right, of the gas pipeline. I can't remember its name, but we've seen things going on, things that do point us back to this first conjunction. And now we've seen the inflation, the price of oil, the price of food, the inflation, and what about what's going on in with Russia and Ukraine? And it just seems like there's new challenging potential conflict happening in all the world. We've seen, I mean, Jupiter and Neptune can speak to flooding, and we've seen what was going on there in what happened in Florida and in North Carolina and in Iran with the flooding there, and in so many parts of the world. From what I know in Australia, because they had a lot of flooding, I think it was, yeah, I think it was back in April, May, with these two gigantic planets when they came close together. We did hear about potential flooding and anything to do with the Earth, which can be over exaggerated. Because if you think of Uranus, which is sudden changes, ups and downs, and shocking changes in the weather or, on the land, even with Saturn and Uranus in a square, which can, I mean, this is the signature of earthquakes, of not only earthquakes on a fundamental practical level, but also on an emotional, psychological level, if we can think of it like that, because it's got a lot to do with the restrictions of Saturn and Uranus. It's like trying to pull away, trying to discern, trying to break free, trying to rebel, revolt from this, and how I've been talking about this with Saturn, the claws of Saturn. That's, trying to hold on to the power over the people, the power over the future, holding on to the old conservative mentality of the past or the way things were always done. And Uranus, which wants to break free, right? So going back to Jupiter and Neptune, Jupiter will revisit Neptune, which can be a magical moment, dear friends, as Jupiter will station to turn direct, and as Jupiter will close up a major cycle, because remember that when we have a conjunction as Neptune and Pluto, and we also had Venus back then conjoining with Neptune and conjoining with Jupiter, and we had a triple conjunction with the three of them, maybe not exact, but they were very, very close to a triple conjunction. This was a seed that was planted, a brand new beginning, a new cycle that began. So that's why Jupiter is regressing back. He's going to revisit this area and bring us more truth. For me, I don't think, my personal opinion, that this will make matters worse, even though it possibly can in the beginning. But as Jupiter will start to move direct, for me, I do believe that the story, the narrative will change, that we will have a lot of truths that will come through, because as I said, even here, tomorrow is when Jupiter in opposition to Mercury, let's move forward one day and you could see that here. Yeah. Let's go back just a few hours, because we can see a kite here, a kite that is forming here. This is a big deal, and we've got a grand fire trine, and it's pointing to Jupiter. So there's a lot of significance with Jupiter's movement, but also in opposition, I should say retrograde, but also in opposition to Mercury, which we will have the truth. We're going to have a lot of disclosure, a lot of information that was that some tried to keep under wraps, but with Mercury also trining over to Pluto recently 3 times. Again, Mercury connected with Pluto 3 times. This is the disclosure. This is the understanding through deep conversations, digging deep. There is a lot of information that is coming through that will be heard, that will be shared. Remember, a lot to do with the world axis as well, things going on in the collective, not only personally. Now, Jupiter does well in Aries. Jupiter enjoys being in a fire sign. He's very powerful, he's very expansive. Jupiter in a very courageous sign, a sign pertaining to new beginnings. I do feel that as Jupiter entered Aries, it's like having tested the waters, but he's still got something that he needs to finish off here as he's going to return back to Aries. As I said, he's stationing direct on November 23rd, but he's entering Pisces on the 28th of October, which is, the end of this month, and there's a lot going on at the end of this month, a lot of significant things, astrologically speaking, at the end of October. Now, we can also say here that as Jupiter is going to regress back into Pisces, he will be in good contact with Pluto. So this is very powerful. Now, Jupiter, as I said, in the sign of courage, in the sign of the individual, in the sign of new beginnings, he expands on the courage of Mars. But Mars, the ruling planet of Aries, is in Gemini, which again, in a good position because Mars ruling Aries, he's in a sextile, 60 degrees, so he does well in the air as well. But Mars is also preparing, my dear friends, to turn retrograde. So let's go back to Mercury. So he's come out of his retrograde. He's entered the sign of balance, peace, relationships, and he's moving direct. Venus and the Sun are also traveling through Libra, through the house of peace, tranquility, love, fairness, justice, legalities, anything to do with the law, okay? And most importantly, relationships. Now, there's a reason always why 2 planets will be traveling together. We've got Venus and the Sun in the sign of Libra. Venus is in her home. Now, Venus in Libra is more a celestial Venus. She's more about the sky and the ability to see things from a divine perspective. Venus is in the sky. She's in the sign of the sky, right? And she's looking down. She's got that higher perspective, that bigger perspective, that understanding, that through perception, speech, and fairness, that's the only way that we can come into balance. That's the only way that these scales will be balanced out. And Venus with the Sun, where the Sun is not really, the Sun is in fall here, so not in a strong position, but they're traveling together and they're going to get to the 29th degree where they're going to conjoin on the 22nd, 23rd of October. So again, towards the end of October. And that will be the cazimi of Venus and the Sun, which is an important matter because it's like Venus will take the power, the clarity, the strength, let's say, of the Sun. She will be amplified, her frequency, let's say. It's like she will receive the energy of the Sun. And obviously a cazimi point, very important moment. But also Venus is starting a brand new cycle there. And that is in Libra. which the conjunction of Venus and the Sun in the past, let's say 100 years, has been happening in the sign of Scorpio. And that's probably why a lot of relationships have needed to go through a death and a regeneration, a rebirth. Relationships that have not been healthy, that have not been poisonous, relationships where there was poison needed to be healed on a larger scale. And even with the South Node transiting through Scorpio, this is the collective karmic past. This is what we need to let go of, to shed. As Scorpio, just like the Scorpio, the snake that takes off a layer of skin a bit at a time, doesn't carry that dead weight with it. And Scorpio can speak to secrecy, depth, deception, betrayal, control, poisoning, intimacy. All those words, jealousy, are words of Scorpio. And so Venus she's going to connect with the Sun before she goes into the underworld. When she's passing through Scorpio, it's as though she's passing through the underworld, the Plutonian area of the sky. So she's turning dark. She takes on the shade of darkness, of Pluto, of all those dark words that I just used in relation to Scorpio. Scorpio also rules sex, fears. All these things come up. All these words, these descriptive words, speak to the Scorpio archetype. So even with the Sun transiting through Scorpio, as the Sun will ingress into Scorpio, again, it will be, those Plutonian energies that we'll be working with through the Scorpio season. But remember that whatever is not fated to be in our lives needs to go. And that's the area of Scorpio, and all areas of the chart are necessary. So this is all about, can we come to an understanding, to equality? Can we sit around a table and have that conversation? Otherwise, we need to go through some sort of a death and then a rebirth, as Venus will also be transiting through Scorpio and the Sun as well. But it's an important moment here that this, Venus-Sun conjunction will open up a new 100-year cycle where, obviously with this Cazimi in the sign of Libra, which is peace, which is beauty, which is anything that is, this could speak to spiritual and divine connections coming through. Not so much, the skin deep, because when I look at Scorpio is its depth, its intimacy, but it's I'm all in or I'm all out. There is no in between with Scorpio. It's black or white, as I always say. Libra is those shades of grey. Where can we come to an understanding that there are other layers, and it's not just you or me, and it's not just us, it's finding the middle ground. But through justice, through fairness, through understanding, through that working connection, right? It's not just about me in this relationship, which is Aries. It's about us, the two of us. So, yeah, this at this time with the Sun moving through Libra, it is in opposition, and Venus is in opposition to Chiron. We've just had a full moon in Aries, which was on Chiron. So the moon has now ingressed into Taurus, which is, the moon loves being in Taurus. Now I've gone a day ahead. I'm just going to go back to the now. This is where we are now as I'm doing this reading, and the moon is in exaltation in Taurus. The moon feels good in Taurus. But I just wanted to also point out that, remember that the eclipses are happening on the fixed sign Taurus Scorpio, and they're also squaring over to Leo and Aquarius. So the moon is in Taurus now, and as the moon will come around on the 25th of October, we're going to have a new moon in the sign of Scorpio. Right, a new moon in the sign of Scorpio. And what's interesting is that both, this full moon and this full moon here in Aries is Mars ruled, and the new moon in Scorpio, which will be a solar eclipse on the 25th, and it will be at the 1 degree and 59, so 2 degrees of Scorpio. So it will affect, obviously, those fixed signs that are born on the first 2-3 days. So I was saying that Scorpio is also ruled by Mars, and Mars is preparing to station retrograde, as he will station retrograde at the 25th degree of Gemini. So will obviously affect all the mutable signs. So Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces, and Mars will be in the sign of Gemini until practically the end of March next year. Mars will retrograde on the 30th of October at the 25th degree. So obviously it will be very important. Again, he entered the retrograde degrees when he hit the 8th degree of Gemini. So again, that 8th degree is where he entered into his shadow phase, so the degrees that he will retrograde over. So from 8 degrees, let me just check, I want to be 100% sure. Yes, it was the 8th degree. So that 8th degree is very significant because that's where Jupiter stationed and that's where Mercury stationed. And it's the 8th degree of air and fire. Air and fire are masculine signs. So fire, of course, is all about action, and air is all about understanding, communicating, and our perception. So both together obviously do bring changes. It's all about action and movement. Okay, so, and the 8 is like the infinity symbol. So it's like we're revisiting a situation where now we're on the verge of sort of moving forward, but we're sort of being taken back for a moment. And I feel it's got a lot to do with, of course, the retrogrades, but also this Saturn-Uranus square that we are finishing up with now in the next couple of months. And this, obviously, this karma or this cycle began with, it started with the Titans back in mythology, right? Father versus son, and power struggles. So a clash of the Titans, which I always call this power struggle between Saturn and Uranus. I'm going to throw Pluto in as well, because Pluto does rule death. And of course, a death means change, right? So power struggles and changes where control, power, and leadership is concerned, and on a collective scale, we've seen a lot of the power being changed from one hand to another, from one group of people to another. And power is not only the physical power, it's not only the power of reputation or position in society, it's also money. Money speaks to power. So, yes, we will be finishing up with this power struggle of, the old order and the new order in the world. Financial systems, I mean, the Taurus Scorpio axis, they're all about, the money. Taurus is my money, it's my resources, what helps me sustain, what makes me feel good. Remember, Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Venus does speak to beauty, it speaks to money. It doesn't only speak to love and and anything that helps us continue moving forward, whether it's emotional support through love, through friendships, through relationships, or whether it's anything in practical matters. So, what is it that we own? Do we own our own houses? We own our own home. We've got a mortgage. Everything has just skyrocketed where prices are concerned. Our resources, our food, what the land gives us, so that we could sustain, whether we feel safe and secure, whether we feel worthy of being loved, worthy of holding on to a certain relationship or not. Has there been value? Has there been support? Has there been stability? With Uranus and Taurus, there's been no stability, and we could see how everything is just very interchanging. It's like the world is transforming on a cosmic level, and personally, obviously. It feels like it's happening really, really quickly. It's like we're getting to the end of the narrative, the story, where the world is preparing to be rebirthed. We've got lots of endings, and just like a cosmic clock, the zodiac is a cosmic clock, and there's many, many cycles. So where there are particular endings, on other cycles there are new beginnings. So everything works as clockwork, and that is Saturn, Kronos, the lord of timing and karma. Karma, but also dharma, I'm going to say. Yes, we are dealing with a lot of karma. Many are facing their judgment day. They're being put in a position where they're being judged. And that's what we're seeing that's playing out here. So the next couple of months, not easy, as this square will finish Uranus, which also can speak to the people, as Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius, and we are moving slowly into the age of Aquarius. But Saturn is still sort of trying to hold us back and saying, okay, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's hold on to those systems that worked in the past, but integrate new systems in as well, which is Uranus. New banking systems, new ways of doing food, new ways of distribution towards the people, new ways of, even very futuristic new systems concerning the internet, a quickening up, like, the new era in, I feel as though we are integrating the future very quickly. We are moving towards that. But sometimes, and the good with Saturn is like, all right, let's not jump the gun. Okay, everything needs to be done in a pace as a group, says Saturn in Aquarius. Aquarius is large groups and people that we associate with. How do we communicate? Aquarius is also the truth. The truth. And, with Scorpio, new moon, solar eclipse ahead of us, it is squaring over to Saturn, even though they're not by degree, but still Saturn in Aquarius and the area of Scorpio is in square. Okay, so because we're also going to have a lunar eclipse early November, and that will be at the 16th degree of Taurus. So again, we will have the square. So it's like a T-square, let's say. Scorpio and Taurus are in opposition, and we've got, Saturn here saying that the pressure is here. The pressure is building in Aquarius. Do we stay stuck or do we break free? Saturn is preparing to come out of his retrograde. He will station and turn direct on October 23rd, which is when the sun will ingress into Scorpio, whether it's the 22nd or 23rd, depending on where you are in the world. Saturn turns direct. Pluto has, on this full moon in Aries, turned direct. He's stationed to turn direct, so therefore he's going to start to pick up pace. He's going to cover a couple of degrees moving forward for the next 6 months until next year. Remember, as I've been saying, Capricorn is those that are in positions of power. It's governments, it's people that are in charge, it's your boss, it's your government, your prime minister, whoever is in that position that is ruling over you. And that could also be a particular, also narcissistic relationship, my dear friends. Remember, Capricorn is a Saturn-ruled sign, and the shadow side, because not all Capricorn people are dark, right? Capricorn people are very hardworking. They're very stable and steady, and they will provide you with security. But as we know, all signs have got their shadow side, their darker side, and their lighter side, right? So the shadow, I should say, the shady area of Capricorn would be Saturn. And Saturn does speak to karma, does speak to heavy lessons, challenging lessons. Someone that will point the finger at you and say you did not do this well, or you did not stand in integrity, you did not do the right thing, so you need to be punished by the law, punished by those who can punish you. Those who rule over you is Capricorn. And with Pluto having, transitioned through Capricorn since 2008, when we had that, financial crash, that world financial crash in 2008, Pluto entered Capricorn. So obviously on a world level, because Pluto also speaks to riches, and Pluto also speaks to the plethora, so it includes a lot of people, a very wide range. So on a very fundamental, very deep, very transformative level, Pluto has been doing the work in Capricorn. Agape, why are you so naughty? Agape's been up to mischief. It's like saying, Mummy, can you give some attention to me because I need you? Yeah, so Pluto turned direct. Yes, sweetheart. Agape. Okay. So Pluto turned direct. Chiron is retrograde as well, my dear friends. This open wound, the wounding of the ability to move forward, the wounding of the mind, of the head, of the thoughts, of the courage. And that's why Mars will be retrograding in Gemini. So those of you that are a mutable sign, Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, and Pisces, if you have got planets or angles between the 8th degree and the 25th degree of Gemini, then this Mars retrograde will be important for you, as Mars will retrograde until January 12th. January 12th of 2023. But he will start to move direct at that time until the end of March. He'll need until roughly the end of March, I think around the 25th of March, when he will leave Gemini and enter Cancer. He does well in air, but it's Mars in Gemini is yap, 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 a lot of talk, but nothing really grounded, right? It's like we're needing to have these conversations or make these decisions pertaining to the house of Gemini. Where is Gemini for you and in your own chart? Logically, just Gemini speaks to communication, publications, anything written, anything that is agreed upon, agreements, learning, it's primary education, it's the ability to move around in your environment, your close periphery, it's not long distance. But if we look at Sagittarius, which is long distance, I suppose the energies bounce so from one sign to another. So we should add the energy of Sagittarius, which is philosophy, higher education, long distance travel. We could be trying to decide if we'll be doing all these things. What is the truth? Sagittarius is all about adventure. It's all about, the ability to expand, to explore other cultures, your beliefs, anything to do with divinity and spirituality. These are the decisions that we'll be making with Mars retrograding here. Now, what I'm noticing here, of course, is Mars that's squaring over to Neptune right now. Usually in a square, in a difficult aspect, Neptune and Mars can bring up disease or illness or lethargy, feeling disillusioned. I don't know how to move forward. There's an illusion. I cannot see clearly. I need to make decisions. Mars in Gemini. I need to have that information, but I don't have it, but I need to take action to do that. I mean, Mars does speak to having the courage and the energy and the drive, but Neptune is disillusion. It's like, with all that water, really, Mars in square to Neptune, it's like Poseidon. Neptune is like clouding Mars's judgment on how to move forward. Remember that Neptune can speak to escapism, not being able to deal with the inability to move forward, because remember that Mars is going to retrograde. But also not having the clarity, Neptune in Pisces, not having the clarity. And as I said, when these two connect, they can bring up illness. Neptune does speak to medicines as well. It speaks to our emotional ability to be able to see, to be able to understand or to envision or to imagine or to create. But in a square means that we are feeling disillusioned about moving forward. And that's probably why we've got Mars retrograding. He needs to have those conversations. He needs to be curious. He needs to find out. He needs to take action. But he needs to revisit the past. So we are moving towards the past with Mars. So what is it that we desire to create? What is it that we need to decide on to understand? We need to revisit the past. And that's why Neptune is in square to Mars. So we're being held back again. Okay, remember Gemini is also about learning. We're still needing to learn something. We're turning a corner, a learning corner, let's say, on how to create through imagination. Jupiter will also enter. Imagine that, when Jupiter will square Mars, because, only 2-3 months ago, Jupiter and Mars connected. They started off a new cycle. I think they connected at the 8th degree. It was probably at the 3rd degree of Aries. So obviously that was in opposition to where Mercury is now. So it's like, we're sort of preparing to see what was that all about, because Jupiter will expand on the Mars energy, on the Mars in Aries in its home sign. I mean, Yeah, and Jupiter is with Mars. It's like the general with the officer or the military, the general and the warrior. So someone is receiving their orders. Mars, who can be combative, who can be warlike. See, they conjoined and they started off a brand new cycle, but they're needing to look towards the past so that they could continue on this new cycle that they began. And because Jupiter expands on everything it touches, that's why we're in a warlike energy. The frequencies are very war stricken. Let's just hope for the best with what's going on in the world and all the propaganda. And my dear friends, do not trust what you hear. Do not trust what you are hearing on mainstream media. There are other things, just like the cosmic clock and the planets. Remember that there is trickery there. There is confusion. There is illusion. For whatever reason, that is a very strong tool that can deceive. So that's why we need to sort of go back and re-look at a situation. Remember, Chiron was on that full moon. We've needed to see something, or we are seeing something about how to move forward in relation to this open wound. How are we thinking? We need to catch ourselves if we're thinking negatively. And of course, because Venus is in opposition here, it is about money, it is about love, it is about fairness and justice and peace, where there are oppositions, and oppositions are fights, right? We've got different opinions. We're all entitled to our opinion, and trying to find the middle ground is what is called for here. And the sun moving through Libra, that's what is beaming there, out there to us. That's what we'll be able to see. Because there are a lot of unhealthy, we've got Hygeia in Sagittarius. Hygeia is the asteroid of health, and it is in focus where Jupiter is concerned. Jupiter is trining over to Hygeia. So healthy understanding, healthy information, healthy truths, healthy even politics, I'm going to say. Anything that is connected with Jupiter. Jupiter speaks to freedom. And has there been healthy freedom in the world? Has there been have we had the ability to have our own philosophy and not be coerced into a narrative that is not our narrative? Because Hygeia is also sextiling over to Mercury, and Mercury is the harbinger of news, information that can be, I would say, we will be given the truth, because this is the third time that they oppose each other. So logically, if you don't get your information right the first time, or the second, the third time, you have to have the right information, the truth. And it is relative to health, and we do know that the pandemic and information around it, I mean, that was the beginning of this world war that has begun from 2020, and even before that, we can say, because in actual fact, we are in a world war, whether it started off slowly, or it started off with a bang, or it's a war of the information, the truth. It's a war connected to health. It's a war connected to the justice system. It's all these systems that have been in place for a long time, working on a particular narrative or a particular outcome. And it all boils down to control. Okay, but we see that here we've got an aspect of a beautiful trine and a sextile over to Hygeia. So this is where the focal point is. So remember that Sagittarius is Jupiter ruled, so therefore it's all about truth, freedom, my beliefs, my understanding, my freedom, my ability to have the knowledge, my ability to connect with spirit, my ability to fly to other distant lands, to feel free. And that's what we see here. We've also got Saturn trining over at this point with Venus and the Sun. So this is really, really good. It's, I mean, a trine, you know, Saturn, which means it speaks to conservatism and like blockages. He is the Lord of timing and karma, but this is a good connection over to Venus. Venus and Saturn do well together. So, you know, Saturn does speak to something long-term or anything to do with maturity and growth and rewards through hard work, through finding an intelligent way to look towards the future as well, connecting with, you know, groups and associations. I mean, the 11th house is, it's a social, it's being social with others. It's connecting through the internet. It's connected again to the rewards that come through the hard work of Capricorn. So whether it's you know, relative to your career, this is a good, like, it's like a green light pertaining to partnerships, connected to a group, or possibly friendships and wishes and dreams, connected to relationship or even partners. Again, all relationships. This is a good sign here. And we will have information. Like, there's like a window of opportunity here, I see. And also, obviously, this grand fire trine connected to Jupiter. Jupiter connects to Black Moon Lilith in a good way through a trine. Black Moon Lilith is like injustices. Black Moon Lilith wanted equality. She's all about rage and anger where she did not, because she was penalized, let's say, because she wanted equality. And she was penalized very heavily, and then she comes through as a lot of rage and darkness and vengeance and all those dark shades. And I'm going to say also Venus that will enter Scorpio. She does remind me very much of Black Moon Lilith. Now, she is in the sign of Leo. So Leo does speak to children. It's the house of, you know, creativity, creative pursuits, risk-taking, love, romance, and children. And remember, she was penalized by, in mythology, they say, her children were killed in front of her face as her punishment. But we've got a grand fire trine, which is beautiful flowing energy, possible, lots of possibilities and divine help from source. Where there's been injustices, it is connected to children. It is connected to matters of heart as well. And I'm going to say also, fifth house can rule over sex. And Black Moon Lilith did not want to be beneath Adam in mythology, and therefore she wanted to be very independent, so she was banished from the Garden of Eden. She wanted her freedom, you know, freedom of choice, and she can be you know, a really tough moment, psychological moment of injustices, unfairness, and all these matters connected to the heart and connected to health, I'm going to say. The ability to feel free, to come through and heal matters of heart, healthy relationships or unhealthy. This is what Jupiter will give you the truth, will give you the understanding, and will bring either people together or will separate people. That's what Jupiter does. Okay, but it's all about truth, the ability to have the truth. Now, we've also got the sun, and well, the sun's past that 13th degree, but the sun is in an inconjunction to Uranus and Venus to the North Node. And an inconjunction is where, you know, these two areas of the chart, they don't work well together. They're very different in energy. So here we've got cardinal air, here we've got fixed earth, so they've got nothing that they share in common. So an inconjunction is something needs to be adjusted, worked upon, right? So they don't share the same energies. It's like they're needing to make some changes so that they could see things from the same point of view. And, you know, the sun connecting with Uranus, it will give us understanding. The sun brings us clarity. Uranus speaks to tower moments, speaks to great changes or rebelling. Okay, and the sun with Venus, obviously, the ability to heal relationships or partnerships or anything to do with money, and Uranus in Taurus does speak to money. So something we need to tweak, connected to the ability to have balance and some sort of justice where our money is concerned, or our securities, or even self-worth where relationships are concerned. Do we feel worthy of this connection? Do we feel worthy of making these changes in our life to possibly give us the ability to feel safe and secure with our resources, with a relationship that is important for us? Both signs are Venus ruled. So it's all about Venus. It's all about Venus. Now, Chiron is also in conjunct to the South Node. So we're needing to tweak things and let go of any poisoning thoughts, of the inability to move forward, to feel courageous, and to know that we've got the ability to find the resolution with, you know, what is this journey that's opened up for us? What is this new cycle that's opened up for us? Okay, and we've also got Juno, the asteroid of commitment and marriage, long-term relationships, at the 8th degree. I was talking about the 8th degree, and Juno is retrograde. Juno was the wife of Zeus, right? She had a very important position to uphold, the queen of the gods. She's ready. I mean, she's slowing down. She's coming to that 7th degree where she's going to station to turn direct. So she will be covering over the same degrees that she retrograded over. This is very important for relationships, commitments, okay? Has there been unconditional love, or has there been deception? Has there been sacrifice, or has there been have you been delusional, or has there been illusion and deception? And have you been caught up in a imprisoning situation? Did you put yourself in that prison? Is it your perception of feeling imprisoned? Well, with 8 degrees, Juno at 8 degrees, and we've got the moon at this moment in a beautiful area in Taurus, there's a sextile here which says there's opportunities to have the enlightenment, to feel good for a moment, as the moon is preparing. The moon is preparing to connect with the North Node. Remember that the moon will enter Scorpio, and that will be a solar eclipse. And then when he returns back to Taurus, that will be a full moon lunar eclipse on the 8th of November. And there's that 8 again. And Juno, yes, at this moment, as I'm reading here, is at the 8th degree. So 8th degree of mutable signs, where relationships are concerned. It hasn't been easy for the mutable signs. With Neptune transiting Pisces, it's those rose-colored glasses. It's the illusion. It's the confusion. Or it's something magical that you haven't been able to either put your finger on or ground yourself with. right? And I would say more than likely that as Mars will be retrograding here, he will give us the truth, and we'll have to make decisions as we're looking and searching for details on this illusion, on this possible deception. Could be self-deception, could be deception from others. So a sextile from Juno, as Juno's ready to station to turn direct. I don't actually know when she will, sorry. Yes, it's at the end of October. So I was talking about, let me just check that for you, but I was talking about the end of October being a very significant time, but also early November. Remember, we're already in the eclipse energies, my dear friends. So I'll be looking into the eclipses as we always do with new moons and full moons on Patreon. If you are interested in the astrology, then do consider joining us as I do the analysis on tier 2 for full moons and new moons, including the eclipses. If you're interested in the month ahead astrology, then tier 3 is where you need to join us. I'm just looking at for the Juno. Here we are. Yes, Juno on the 24th of October. That's when we will have Juno turning direct. We will have the resolution of what was going on, because Juno will be obviously in trine to the sun. So since Juno is in Pisces, then the sun will be roughly at the 7th degree of Scorpio, right, where it will trine Juno, and that's where we will have the resolution of, what's been going on with this Juno cycle. We've been looking at our commitments, and this began in January, my dear friends, the 11th of January. In July, it was Juno that turned retrograde. So we've been sort of revisiting the past connected to our commitments, marriage, important relationships. So the end of July was an important turning point. In the beginning of September, we had some sort of clarity, possibly. And on the 24th, which is when Saturn will also turn direct, on the 23rd. 25th is the solar eclipse. What else do I need to say? I mean, October 30th is Mars turning retrograde. There is just so much going on at the end of October. I have heard people calling October the Red October. Now, what's going on in the world? Very, very scary at this time, but we need to keep the faith. Hopefully, we're at the tail end of the storm, and that was Eros who sneezed. Eros is by my side as well. Eros? Yeah, we're at the tail end of the storm, which I have been talking about this, coming up, and even on Patreon, it's like something needs to give. The energies are just so powerful. It's like a volcano that is ready to erupt, and that could be literal and metaphorical, of course, personally and collectively for all of us. Now, we're all in this together. We're all hoping that things will fix up, but I would say, my dear friends, after November, moving towards Christmas, and even better towards March will be a very, very important turning point. But I believe from Christmas onwards, when Jupiter returns back to Aries, I think things will be different then. But we're at the on the eye of the storm, we could say it now. So I will be back with more astrology today is the 11th, so in about 10 days, just before the eclipse probably, for an update on the astrology, and we will obviously go through all the astrology here that we see. But until then, I hope that you are all staying strong, staying vigilant. Don't trust everything that you hear. Make sure that you discern, do the Virgo thing, do your research, do your own research. And I don't know why, I heard something about the elections in the US of the 8th of November, which is right on that lunar eclipse in Taurus, which will be an eclipse that's right on Uranus. I heard that they're maybe thinking of not having the elections. Well, that will be interesting. I do feel that there will be a lot that will, world events will be just shocking, mind-boggling, and we'll be saying, oh my God, oh wow. And when we do go through the eye of the storm, many of you know, it can be very, very harsh and challenging, but stay on track. Trust that Spirit is guiding us, has our back, and is doing its best to bring the light to the world, because it's been only darkness the past few years. Only darkness. And I'm really, really looking forward to Pluto's test drive in Aquarius next year in March. Saturn will ingress into Pisces. So, the fixed signs will be off the hook, obviously. Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius, they haven't had it easy at all. And those areas in the chart, but we've all got Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Leo somewhere in our chart. But do you have planets there? Do you have your rising there? That is just a question. For those of you that would like to join us on Patreon, of course, I can, for free, it is for free, I can send you out your birth chart if you have your precise birth time and your birthplace. Even if you don't have your precise birth time, even then I could send you out your birth chart. But the thing is, you won't know your exact rising. So a precise birth time, my dear friends, is very important. Even when for those of you that are interested in, a natal chart reading, which I do offer on my website, it is really, really important to have the precise birth time. If you do not, and you've got an approximate, then the details will be approximate. Anyway, I think I will leave it there, my dear friends. I want to thank you so much. Those of you that are interested in a personal reading, you can reach out through my website, which will be in the link beneath this video. Also, you can write to me at divinedebut11@gmail.com. If you don't know which reading to choose, I do offer astrology and I offer tarot readings. Okay, so very important times. I am thinking also, my dear friends, of doing tarot readings for the rest of the year, so October, November, December, for each sign. That's what I'm thinking of working on. That's just an extra bonus. And again, even on Patreon, for those of you that are on Patreon, thank you for your support. They do get, my patrons do get extra readings. So Mars retrograde, we'll be analyzing that. We have done the reading on Juno, Juno and Juno cycles and the mythology of Juno. We do a lot of mythology on Patreon. So if you are interested, we would love to have you there. And thank you also for your support, your love, for liking, sharing, and subscribing to this channel and to this video. Thank you for your comments. Always love to hear them. Wishing you all well. Love you all so much. Thank you. I will talk to you soon. Ta-da.